The protagonist gazes out over the city skyline, his thoughts drifting back to the choices that led him here. His marriage to Amy crumbled under the weight of unspoken words and unmet expectations. He remembers the days when their home was filled with warmth and laughter, and how quickly it all unraveled. But it's his daughter, Sarah, who haunts him the most. He left without so much as an explanation, and the guilt gnaws at him every waking moment. The years since his departure have not softened the regret, but instead have deepened the chasm between them. He thinks of her growing up without him, of all the milestones he missed, and the knowledge that he might never have a chance to make things right. His failure as a father weighs heavy, more than anything else. He can still picture Sarah on her graduation day, her smile tinged with sadness as she looked out into the crowd, scanning faces she didn't recognize. He wasn't there. He remembers the hollow feeling in his chest when he learned she had graduated without him. Was that the last straw? Did she finally give up on waiting for him? He hasn't been part of her life for years, and every time he thinks of her, it cuts like a knife. Her voice, the way it sounded on the few brief phone calls he managed to make over the years, strained and distant, always haunted him. What did he expect? That time would heal the wounds he caused? That Sarah would simply understand? He fears she has built a life without him, one that doesn't need his apology or his presence. The more he reflects on his actions, the more convinced he becomes that he made the biggest mistake of his life when he chose to walk away. He starts to wonder if she even cares anymore, or if he'll find only bitterness and resentment when he finally returns. The weight of that uncertainty keeps him up at night. The thought of returning to Dallas is overwhelming, yet something inside him tells him he has no choice. He can't keep running from his past. He's tried, but every day that passes without confronting the consequences feels like one more year he'll never get back. He remembers the affair, Amy's betrayal, and how it shattered everything he thought he knew about love and loyalty. But none of that can excuse his abandonment of Sarah. His absence has already cost him so much. He may have fled to escape the pain of the broken marriage, but now it's Sarah he can't escape from. Every day he's lived without her, the harder it becomes to find a way back. He needs to make things right, even if that means facing a storm of anger and resentment. The journey will be uncomfortable, painful, and probably disappointing. But if there's any chance of reconnecting with Sarah, of showing her that he still cares, he has to try. The decision feels as inevitable as it is terrifying. He can no longer pretend that his own guilt and fears are enough to keep him from the daughter he abandoned. That night, he walks aimlessly through the streets, lost in thought. The city feels foreign, even though it's the same place he once called home. The neon lights flicker above him, and the buzz of the street lights does little to settle his racing thoughts. He keeps returning to the past, before everything fell apart with Amy. He remembers their love, how it felt so real, so right, how they dreamed of a life together, of raising Sarah in a world filled with love. But somehow, over time, they drifted. The small misunderstandings turned into bigger rifts, and the emotional distance between them became a chasm. The worst part was that he never really tried to bridge that gap. He just walked away. Now he wonders if he could have fixed it, if he could have been there for Sarah. The guilt over leaving her behind is suffocating. He knew it was wrong, but he left anyway. The thought of confronting Amy, of facing her anger and pain, makes him freeze. He doesn't know how he'll handle it, but he knows he can't keep running. It's during a chance encounter with Rob, an old friend from his past, that the reality of his situation hits him. Rob, who's always been the blunt one, doesn't hold back. "You've been running, man. You've been hiding, and you know it. But you can't keep avoiding your daughter. She deserves more than what you've given her." Rob's words hit him like a slap, but they're the truth he's been avoiding. He tries to brush it off, but Rob's gaze doesn't falter. "She needs answers, not excuses. Stop hiding from your past." The clarity he gains in that moment is stark. He's been too focused on his own pain, on how hard it would be to confront Amy, to see that Sarah needs him. Not in some grand, romanticized way, but in a real, grounded way. She needs to hear from him, to know why he left and why he wants to come back. He realizes it's time to stop running, no matter how difficult or uncomfortable. He'll face whatever comes, because it's the only way forward. The idea of returning to Dallas, of confronting his mistakes, fills him with dread, but now there's no other choice. He has to go back, even if it means breaking his own heart in the process. After days of agonizing over the right words, he picks up the phone. His heart races in his chest as the ringing sounds on the other end. When Sarah finally answers, he barely recognizes her voice. So grown up, so different from the girl he once knew. It's been years, and the tension is palpable. "Sarah," he begins, his throat tight. "It's me, Dad." There's a long pause before she responds, her voice flat and guarded. "I know who it is," she says, each word laced with a mixture of anger and disbelief. The silence between them is thick with unresolved emotions. He stumbles over his words, offering a half-hearted apology, but he knows it won't be enough to undo the damage. "I'm sorry," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "For everything." There's another silence, and then Sarah speaks, her words sharp. "You think saying sorry will fix anything? You think I'll just forget that you abandoned me?" His stomach churns as she continues, each word cutting deeper. He wants to explain, to make her understand why he left, but he knows now isn't the time. There's a long pause before she speaks again, quieter this time. "I don't know what to say, Dad. I don't know if I can forgive you." He swallows the lump in his throat, knowing that this is just the beginning of a long road. Making the call to Amy is even harder. He dials her number with a shaking hand, knowing that she's been just as hurt by his absence as Sarah. When she picks up, there's no greeting, just the coldness in her voice that matches the bitterness in his chest. "What do you want?" she asks, and the words sting more than he expected. He sighs, trying to find the right words. "Amy, I'm back. I need to make things right. For Sarah." Her laugh is hollow, bitter. "You think you can fix everything now? After years of nothing?" He knows it's too late for easy apologies, but he needs her to understand that he's not just doing this for himself. "I know I can't undo the past, but I want to try. For her. For Sarah." The silence on the other end stretches long, before Amy finally speaks, her voice broken. "You should have thought about that before you left us." He swallows hard, feeling the weight of his past mistakes pressing down on him. The arrangements to return to Dallas feel surreal. He contacts Bill, an old friend who offers him a temporary place to stay. It's a small shack on the outskirts of the city, barely livable, but it's a place to start. He doesn't care about comfort anymore. He just needs a place where he can figure out his next move. As he packs his few belongings, a sense of dread lingers. He knows that he's about to face the hardest chapter of his life. There's no telling how Amy or Sarah will react, or if he'll even be able to repair the damage he's done. But he can't back out now. He has no other option but to return to the place where everything fell apart, to the family he abandoned. The journey feels like a heavy weight on his shoulders, and with each passing moment the pressure builds. The idea of confronting the people he once loved, of facing the pain he caused, fills him with fear. But at the same time, it's the only thing he can do. He's not sure what will happen when he finally steps foot in Dallas again, but he knows that his return is the first step toward whatever comes next. The drive to Dallas is long and filled with reflection. The highway stretches endlessly before him, and with each mile, memories of his old life flood back. The house where he once lived, the street where they had their first kiss, the neighborhood park where he pushed Sarah on the swing. Everything seems so distant now, as though it belongs to someone else. Yet, as he gets closer to the city, the sense of dread only deepens. Dallas hasn't changed much, but he has. The city feels like a ghost, a reminder of the man he used to be, the man who made choices that led him to abandon the people who needed him. He wishes he could go back in time, undo the past, but there's no turning back now. His future lies here, in this city, and whatever happens next will be the result of the decisions he makes in the coming days. The thought terrifies him. When he pulls up to the safe house, it's nothing like he remembered. The shack, weathered and run down, feels like a metaphor for everything that's gone wrong in his life. The reality of what he's done, the years he's wasted, the lives he's hurt, settles heavily on his shoulders. This isn't the life he left behind. There's no comfort, no security, just the cold, hard truth of his choices. He steps out of the car, feeling the weight of the air around him. The familiar city is so close, yet so far away. This safe house feels like a prison, and for the first time he realizes how much work it will take to fix everything he broke. Time is running out, and he knows that every day he spends hiding is a day lost with Sarah and Amy. The clock is ticking, and he's running out of time. The call to Amy is inevitable. He has to tell her that he's back, that he's ready to face what he's done. He dials her number with a shaky hand, and when she picks up, there's no greeting, just the familiar cold distance. "Amy," he starts, "I'm back. I want to fix things. For Sarah." Her voice is sharp, edged with anger. "You think you can fix things now, after everything?" He pauses, trying to steady his voice. "I know I can't change the past, but I want to try. For her. For Sarah." There's a long silence on the other end before she speaks again. "You should have thought about that before you left us." The words cut deep, but he knows she's right. He's been running from his mistakes for so long that he's forgotten the pain he caused. "I'm sorry," he says, the words feeling hollow but necessary. "I can't undo it. But I want to be here now. I need to try." Amy doesn't respond immediately, but the silence speaks volumes. He knows this conversation is just the beginning of the long road ahead. As the days drag on, he feels the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. He's done all he can for now. Reached out to Amy, called Sarah, and made his intentions clear. But the reality of the situation hasn't sunk in until now. He can't undo the damage. He can't fix the years he lost. He wonders if Sarah will even want him in her life again, if Amy will ever forgive him. The distance between them seems insurmountable, and every step forward feels like a leap into the unknown. Still, there's no turning back. He's here, in Dallas, with no other choice but to face the consequences of his actions. He wonders if he'll be able to handle what comes next, the anger, the hurt, the possible rejection. But he knows one thing for certain: he can't keep running. Whatever happens, he has to stay and confront the past he left behind. Staring at his phone, the protagonist's heart pounds in his chest. He's reached out, but the answers he fears may never come. The silence on the other end of the call, the cold distance, is deafening. Will Sarah accept him? Will Amy even allow him back into their lives? He doesn't know, but the tension is unbearable. His future feels like it's hanging by a thread, and with every passing second, the weight of his past mistakes threatens to consume him. The phone screen flickers, a message pops up, but he's not ready to look. He can only wait.